Chapter 3. The Harbour Run. After 4 days and nights, they sighted the New Baden port of Gatton. As they entered through the walled wharf, both engines shut down. She ploughed on into the empty harbour. The captain quietly and calmly said to the boatswain, "Fetch the breecher's boy, please." The boatswain slipped down the gantry stairs and dove into the locker. In the conglomeration of muddled ropes and blocks, tackles, he spied the box of the breecher's boy. Up on the port side of the bridge, the captain tied the lanyard to the rocket. The boy tied the other end to the large ship's hawser. The rocket bow had been crushed in the storm, and the captain turned to the boy. "Well, a crossbow would be in order right now." "Yes, sir, I'll get mine," the boy said with a smile as the ship ploughed on. With the rocket safely placed in the crossbow, he aimed at the closest capstan to the entrance of the harbour. An old Tian shoresman stood watching the factory ship. "He's coming in way too fast." He saw there was no propeller wake. Then he saw the rocket. It bounced close to the capstan. "Clever captain if it works." He broke the flight arrow of the rocket, pulling the lanyard till the hawser was on the wharf. He turned it to the capstan. Moving over to the solar engine, he pressed the lever and it purred, and the capstan began to rotate, the hawser being wrapped around it. The ship began to slow, and the bow began to turn. The boy punched the air, jumping. "Yes, sir!" The shoreman was doing a jig on the wharf, clapping his hands. The captain swung the wheel to port, her bow almost facing the wharf, but still too fast. Her stern churned up the water, white foam and waves. Chi, one of the surviving crew, threw a monkey's fist tied to a lanyard, then to another hawser. The shoreman struck the glass pane with his wangi. The solar engine for the capstan began to turn. He ran, pulling on the monkey's fist, till the hawser appeared, and he tied it to the running capstan. Her stern began to move to the wharf, and the two hawsers tightened. As they did, they sprayed seawater into the air. The 60-foot hawsers sounded like banshees screaming as they tightened, straining against the huge ship. The battered Conway began to slow, and the captain ran the wheel to midships. "Stand fast, lads! Gonna be..." The Conway slammed heavily against the dock. As she did, she spilt a wave onto the wharf. The old Tian got soaked for his troubles, but he looked up at the terrorized bridge. "Didn't think you'd make it, Cap, but by the gods of the anvil." He laughed, taking an ice-splice hawser from Che and dropping it over the cleat. The ship looked as though it had been attacked by more than a storm. No antenna for the radio, no equipment left on the bridge, only one screen, and the rest were gone. The port door, snatched by the storm, only twisted hinges remained. The wheelhouse completely emptied of anything that would move. Charts and cups and navigation paraphernalia all gone. The shore executive officer came marching down the wharf, his 6-man patrol following, all out of step. The boatswain had lowered the makeshift gangplank, and the officer, without saying a word, came aboard, with his smartly dressed uniform and medals worn high on his white tunic. What they were for, no one knew. His sword jangled at his side as he walked in his knee-high white leather boots. His tall white pith helmet with red and blue feathers perched on his oval bald head. "Where's the rest of the fleet? We sent 10 of our finest ships out to harvest. And now? How many tons of fish did you catch this time, Captain?" said the pompous officer with his high-pitched, grinding voice and a sarcastic smile. He said nothing of the condition of the ship. The captain stood at the twisted rail, looking at the battered ship, then turned to the officer. "We told you before we left there are no fish. However, don't ask us how we managed in that superstorm. You tyrants disgust me. I'm done with this. I'm going home, and my crew are going home too." The captain began to walk by this bully. He put his hand on the captain's chest, reaching with the other hand for his sword. "You flushed the fish when the storm came, didn't you, you bunch of cowards?" said the officer, raising his sword. "You're not listening to my words. There are no fish. The ocean's empty. She's like a desert, you clown. You know nothing of the ocean. You've never even been to sea." The captain was furious. "You know nothing of that storm. There were never any fish on board," said one of the crew standing next to his captain. The officer's men pointed their bows at the sailors. "You're all guilty of sabotage. I know you dumped the fish to save your own wretched lives. You're all under detention." He knew without a catch his position was in quicksand. The boatswain stepped forward. "There were 10 boats left here weeks ago. Only one's back, and all you cocky bastards care about is where's the fish. What about the boys who ain't coming home?" The boatswain rarely raised his voice, but this time he shouted at the officer and then spat on the deck. "That's it, ain't it? You don't care, do you? It's the shram, ain't it? Well, not to worry. It'll all be over soon." The young captain pushed past the officer. The 4 crewmen followed him. The boatswain was last to the gangplank. Down on the quay, the officer and his uniformed patrolman marched quickly in front of the weary crew. "You're all detained for dereliction of duty to the authority," shouted the officer in a high-pitched voice. "We're free, Tians, not in your pay, so you can kiss my brother's horse's ass," the captain snarled at the officer. The captain and his crew turned and walked along the deck. The shore officer and his 6 troops tried to stop them, but the crew was having none of their malarkey. They pushed on. As the officer lifted his sword to strike the captain, the boy rushed forward, pushing him. The officer stumbled sideways, tripping on a large iron cleat, somersaulting into the murky harbour water. His men just watched in amazement as he splashed around. He couldn't swim. His beleaguered helmet floated away, feathers sinking into the muddy depths. Lucky for him, an old piece of flotsam was close. He clutched onto the soaking wood. "You'll pay for this. I'll make sure of that," he spluttered.